Our banking system is sound.
In the past 2 weeks, serious difficulties at a small number of banks have emerged.
These banks are safe.
All depositors' savings in the banking system are safe.
The banking system in the United States is sound and resilient.
Banking system is sound. Banking system is sound. Banking system is sound. Banking system is sound and resilient.
A rough week for the banking industry.
The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, the second biggest bank collapse in U.S. history.
The Silicon Valley Bank collapse is the worst since 2008.
Social Security is structurally sound.
As president, I will not cut one penny from Social Security or Medicare.
There's an imminent disaster waiting. I mean, that's where we're headed.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Bryce Harper. Suarez delivers. Swing and a drive. Left field. It's deep. It's going. Yes! And it is gone. Yes! It is bedlam at the bank as Bryce Harper has put the Phillies on top.
Thank you for tuning in to Bogus Banks, Behemoth Bubbles, and Baseball Betting. This is podcast number 13. Today is January the 14th, and I'm your host, Chase Goldman. I am expecting to get a lot more views on this podcast today because I'm going to use for the first time ever a thumbnail on YouTube. I think that could be why I'm only getting like 20 views on these videos that I make. Hopefully, maybe this one will get a little more traction. So, if you're new to the podcast, this podcast is about trying to make money with money you already have. It's for investments, and you see baseball betting in the title, and so for the people that think they're smarter than that and they don't bet on sports, they only bet on stocks, and they're not gamblers, they're investors. I will tell you that I don't give a shit what strategy you're implementing in the stock market, whether it's buy and hold and collect dividends, or you're trying to time the market somehow, or you're trying to rotate in and out of sectors. I don't give a shit what you're doing, even if it's just as simple and safe as buy and hold. That's a gamble. You're betting that the stock market will continue to go up over time. There's no guarantee of that. Japan's stock market was underwater for like 40 years, I believe. I think it peaked in 1990, and it just got back to its former nominal all-time high. I believe that was last year in 2024. So what is that? Okay, 34 years, not quite 40, but pretty much a lifetime for anyone. So those are the risks of being a buy and hold investor that most people don't pay attention to. And the other thing I will point out is that if you think this AI bubble won't affect you, you're just invested in the S&P 500, you were gravely mistaken. 42% of the entire market cap of the S&P 500 is represented by, I believe it's 10 stocks, those top 10 stocks. That would be Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Broadcom, Nvidia, the big ones that are all over $1 trillion in market cap. Tesla is in there. These stocks are extremely overvalued, in my opinion, and I think the bubble's going to pop. But I also think, I've been trying to short this market. God, I've been trying to short this freaking market since 2020, thinking that stocks were overvalued. And there definitely was a bubble that came up in 2021. It popped in 2022, and then what happened was there were 3 things that were going on at that time. Number one, you had renters who were able to go back and tell the government they were negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic. They were just realizing this in, I guess it was 2022. That's when the renters started figuring this out, or late 2021. And they would go to the government, fill out a form, and they would get reimbursed for 1.5 years of rent, internet, and electric bills. So that was going on. And then when that one ended, then we started seeing TV ads for all these ERC credits, employer retention credits. So basically, during the pandemic, if you were a small business and you didn't lay off your employees, you were able to get, I think it was $26,000 cash money and a refund from IRS for every employee that was on your payroll during that pandemic. So that was another, massive amount of stimulus going into the economy. But then we also had this AI bubble come out of nowhere. I guess that really started to materialize in late 2022. So me trying to short the bubble, I've had my teeth kicked in multiple times. And I've always thought and suspected that these markets are fake. that the trading volume is not real. I know for sure that the floor of the New York Stock Exchange is nothing but a movie set for CNBC. There's absolutely no proof that, they're going to tell us at the end of the day that 5 million shares of IBM changed hands and the stock went down 75 cents or whatever. And there's absolutely not a shred of proof that you or I can see to verify that those trades happened and that that's what the real story is. There's no proof whatsoever. So I oftentimes think that, we're just playing a video game. There's a wizard behind the curtain who is literally just making these stocks go up and down. He's pointing his finger in a certain direction. So that said, I want to just let you guys know that, I've got some new formulas in baseball. We're going to go over that towards the end of the podcast because I've got this thumbnail up. I want to keep this one centered more towards the macroeconomics and the stock market crash that I think is underway. So I want to lead off with that, and then we'll go over baseball towards the end of the show. So back on October the 28th, I think I saw something in my Twitter feed. It might have been the 29th, the next day. But I saw something in my Twitter feed, and somebody was mocking the ringing of the bell by Andrew Ross Sorkin. So let me go back over this story. I'm going to play a video for you, and then we'll be right back. Inside the Greatest Crash in Wall Street History and How It Shattered a Nation. The book is about the 1929 stock market crash. The purpose for this whole event with Andrew Ross Sorkin ringing the bell. In case you guys aren't familiar, Andrew Ross Sorkin is a member of the CNBC team. He's one of the talking heads on CNBC. But he was allowed to ring the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange on Wednesday, October the 28th, standing in front of a giant sign about a stock market crash. Now, before we go any further, I just want to make it perfectly clear that I ultimately hold a belief that the entire world is run by witches. And I know that sounds absolutely insane. So I'm going to show you a video clip of Tom Brady getting a shave during a Gillette commercial after he won one of his Super Bowls. Now, you will know that Tom Brady he was the quarterback for the Patriots, and I think he won another Super Bowl with another team, like the first year he transferred to that team. I want to say it was the Saints, but that doesn't sound right. I don't follow the NFL as closely as I do baseball. But regardless, Tom Brady holds records in the NFL that will never be broken, not in our lifetimes. So I'm going to play this clip for you. It's by the way, if you go to Google, DuckDuckGo, you can't find this video. Gemini was able to find this video for me. So I'm going to play this right now.
Superstitions going into the game? Any special thing you carried into the game on Sunday that you had tucked away somewhere?
I did. I always, I've learned a lot from my wife over the years. She's so about the power of intention, and believing things that are really going to happen. And she always makes a little altar for me at the game because she just wills it so much. And so she put together a little altar for me that I could bring with pictures of my kids. And I have these little special stones and healing stones and protection stones. And she has me wear a necklace and take these drops she makes. And I say all these mantras. And I stopped questioning her a long time ago. I did. I just shut up and listened. And at first I was like, this is kind of crazy. And then about 4 years ago, we were playing the Seahawks, and she said, you better listen to me. This is your year, but this is all the things you're going to have to do to win. And I did all those things, and by God, you don't work. It was pretty good. And then in 2015, it was about early January, and she said, you know how much I love you? And I said, yeah. And she said, I just want to let you know this is not going to be your year. Oh. And of course, we lost. I said, what does 16 look like? And she said, 16 is going to be your year. So it was early January this year, and I said, babe, asking, do we have a chance? And she said, yeah, but you're going to have to do a lot of work, and you're really going to have to listen to me. So, man, I listened to her. And right after the game, she said, see, I did a lot of work. You do your work, I do mine. She said, you're lucky you married a witch. I'm just a good witch.
Okay, so you can see that Tom Brady married a witch, and he's got Super Bowl records that will never be broken. I'm going to also play you guys another clip from Bob Dylan, where he talks about selling his soul. So let me play that one.
You ever look at music that you've written and look back at it and say, whoa, that surprised me?
I used to. I don't do that anymore. I don't know how I got to write those songs.
What do you mean you don't know how?
Well, those early songs were like almost magically written. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, a handmade blade, a child's balloon.
Eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand you knew too soon. There's no sense in trying.
Try to sit down and write something like that. There's a magic to that, and it's not Siegfried and Roy kind of magic. You know, it's a different kind of a penetrating magic.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I mean, I made a bargain with it, you know, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with you know, with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And on this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
There are a lot of other instances where celebrities have talked about this sort of thing. Now, whether they're, the people that run this world, I believe, maybe they're not necessarily witches, but maybe they've just made deals with the devil. Maybe it's all part of the same thing. I really don't know how it all works. But there are references all throughout the Bible to witches and witchcraft and wizards. I guess the wizard is the male version of the witch. But yeah, I think it's totally real, and I think it goes on. I think the people that were running this world back in the late 1700s when they had the French Revolution, I think they learned their lesson, and they know that they need to keep things on the down low because the peasants can uprise and behead them. So I think that is a real thing that is still going on to this day. But I also think that these people that run the world, I do believe that they own all the stocks. So in other words, if you get pissed off at Home Depot and take your business across the street to Lowe's, I don't think it matters. I think you're giving your money to the same people anyway. I think they own it all, and they hide behind funds and funds of funds, and that's how they own everything, and they just keep it secret from us. That's so private equity baits in some guy who owns a giant pest control company with 50 different trucks or 25 trucks, and he sells out to private equity, and then who owns it? It's them. That's kind of what I think. I can't prove any of this shit, but that's what I think. So they own and control everything, and part of their moral code, I believe, and I can't prove this either, but I do believe that part of their moral code requires them to tell the peasants in advance what they have planned for us. And if you'll go back and listen to my podcast number 5 after we're done with this one, I've got 45 minutes of just nonstop, one after the other. Wow, what a coincidence. For example, you had the Titanic sank, but about a decade before that actually happened, there was a book called, I can't remember, it had Titan in the name, but podcast number 5 goes over that one. And it talks about how there was this book that came out 10 or 15 years before the Titanic sank, and it was almost word for word the exact same script. We also saw that with COVID and The Eyes of Darkness, where Dean Koontz wrote a book in 1981 where it talked about a worldwide pandemic that was started by a virus that escaped from a bioweapons lab. That bioweapons lab was in China, but not just anywhere in China. It came out of Wuhan, China. And, oh, by the way, the book was set in a futuristic setting. Even though the book was written in 1981, the setting for the book was 2020. You can't make this shit up. So let me play you this next clip. This one is Bart to the Future. Its air date was March 19th, 2000. This was almost 26 years ago. Let me play this.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
We're broke.
The country is broke? How can that be?
So they talked about a President Trump in an episode of The Simpsons that aired on March 19th, 2000, 26 years ago. And not only that, they talked about a nation being broke at the end of Trump's term. So I wasn't even paying attention to this until we got into the pandemic, and now that's kind of been my overall investment thesis since that time. I do believe that it matches up with what we're seeing. We have a national debt that is just ridiculously stupid. There's no way the government can make good on all these Social Security payment promises they've made. The nation's broke. The only thing that the nation has right now is this fabulous stock market that just keeps going up higher and higher every single year. In fact, if you would have bought the NASDAQ 100 at the low in March of 2009, you've compounded your money at an annual rate of 21%. It's the gift that just keeps on giving. Now, if you think that can represent reality, that you can compound your money at 21% year after year after year after year after year, no, I just don't see it. I mean, that's a fantasy. To me, that's a bubble. But regardless, this was predicted 20 years ago in The Simpsons, or 26 years ago in The Simpsons, that we'd be in this situation, and I do believe they're going to crash this stock market. But when I saw Andrew Ross Sorkin ringing that bell on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, it took me about I think I placed my first trade to short NASDAQ on the 30th of October, 2 days later. But what happened was the stock market, all three major indexes peaked on October the 29th. So what do we have there? Let's go back and see how these witches, they love to invert things. That's why a lot of times you'll see upside down crosses in some of these satanic music bands. I think Ozzy Osbourne claimed to be an open Satanist. I believe he did. He definitely had upside down crosses on his stage performances and maybe some of his album covers. But they love to invert things and put things backwards, but they encode things in these movies and in these things that your average normal person might not even pick up on. So when I see a very powerful person that's a spokesperson for CNBC ringing a bell, standing in front of a giant sign about a stock market crash, that gets my attention. Now, that stock market crash that he wrote the book about, and that was his cover story for ringing the opening bell. He's promoting his book. But when I see that person ringing a bell in front of a giant sign about a stock market crash, and that stock market crash happened in October of 10/29, the very next day, all three major U.S. stock market indexes hit their all-time intraday highs on October the 29th. Now, initially I was focused on the Dow. It didn't take long, and the Dow was on to new highs. It broke that high. So then I said, well, it's probably the S&P 500. Because the S&P 500 is, there's more funds under management on ETFs for the S&P 500 than there are for the Dow by a mile. But that one broke its all-time high on the day after Christmas, December 26th. So now I figure, well, it must be the Invesco QQQ, the NASDAQ 100. They advertise at baseball games. Maybe that's the one that is the most focused upon by humanity because of the advertising they do in the NFL and, baseball games and stuff like that. So I'm focused on the NASDAQ 100. It's after today's close, I'm sure it's going to be down around solid 2.5, maybe even 3% from that all-time high set on October 29th. But there's more to the story than just what we've gone over so far, so stay with me. I live in Puerto Rico most of the year, but I flew home to Texas. And during the wintertime, normally during the baseball season, I've only got a 1-hour time differential between Texas and Puerto Rico. But in the winter hours, it's a 2-hour time lag. So when we got home in mid-November back to Texas, I found myself just waking up super, super early. Because I'm still on that 2-hour time lag. So I woke up real early on the morning of November the 19th, and I was just curious to see if CNBC had live programming going on that early in the morning. So I grabbed my iPad and I opened Fubo, And sure enough, there they are. They're CNBC's live. And it just so happens that Andrew Ross Sorkin is on the set, and lo and behold, they're waving around that book about the stock market crash again. So let me play you this clip.
And you've got a new book out.
You and me both. Can we give a quick shout out to Viking? We both have stocking stuffers.
That's
folks.
true. There you go.
And you know what's interesting? Our books are kind of different, but kind of the same. Mine is all about practical advice, actionable takeaways to achieve success. I am not going to teach you to be a mentalist. But yours is kind of looking into the past.
Yes.
To avoid financial disaster.
Yes.
Which I didn't know, but October 24th, 1929, Black Thursday.
That is true.
What if you had known that date before it happened? Right? This all shows what if you could know the future.
Jesse Livermore and shorted the market and done spectacularly.
Right, but
so what we have here is Oz Perlman, who is an Israeli, and he's on the set of CNBC. He calls himself a mentalist. Most people would call him a magician. I would call him a witch or a wizard. So, and he's waving around Andrew Ross Sorkin's book about the 1929 stock market crash, and now he's asking questions about what if you had known it was going to crash before it did. Let's keep going.
And done spectacularly.
Right, but how do you see what's going to happen? I like to say we throw out a date. We go into the future, gentlemen, month, day, and year. That has no meaning in the next decade. Month, day, and year. What year? Give me the year. What do you got?
The one that...
Yes.
2027?
2027, you see, is there a reason you picked it or no? Month and a day.
I'm going July 6th.
July 6th, 2027. What do you think's going to happen on that day? I'm writing it down. 7:06.
The market will open and the market will close?
7:06. I agree with you. 7:06:27. Here's what I think. This is the wild part about this.
I wonder if it could be a weekend.
It could be a weekend. I didn't look it up yet. July 6, 27. You made it up. Here's where this gets interesting. What if you knew the future? Right? What if you could figure out? Each of you grab a book. You get your own book.
Okay.
I get your book.
You get my book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm giving it to you. I'll sign it later. You better sign that one for me.
Okay.
Flip through the pages.
Yeah.
And I want you, because here's what I think. The way that a 1929 event happens is when everyone's brain is synced up. Everyone loses confidence in the market at the same time. Yep. Everyone sells, no one buys.
Okay, so you can see both of these guys, Kernan and then Sorkin also brought it up. You know, gee, what if it's not a weekday and the markets aren't open? Could it be a weekend? They were both wondering about that. Now, whether or not Kernan and Sorkin are both acting in this skit, or if they're really just, innocent, they don't know what Perlman's going to do, I don't know. We will never know the truth behind that. But regardless, they're both concerned about, well, could July 6, 2027 be a weekday or a weekend? And then you'll also notice that Perlman talks about how all the minds are synced up. Now, I believe that's where we come into the casting of the spell. When everybody loses confidence all at one time, that's when the markets crash. So I think that's really interesting that there's so much focus on whether or not this is a weekend or a weekday. And because of that, and also the fact that they're waving around this 1929 stock market crash book, that's what I think. I think July 6, 2027 is going to be the bottom of this market crash. I think it's going to be I don't think they're going to be casting spells for a little correction or bear market territory. I think it's going to be an absolute crash, and I think NASDAQ's going to lose 90%. And when we look back on this 3 years from now, if I'm right, and the market does crash 90%, everybody's going to say, well, we should have been able to see it coming. Everybody's going to say that, but let's go on.
As you're flipping through, hold it a little closer. Sorry. Because it doesn't matter to me, but I don't want you to see each other's.
Okay.
His book has more pages than mine.
Yes.
One page, I always say it's calling out your name. Go to yours in your book. Go to yours in your book. Find it and bring it close to your body. I like how Andrew just started reading his book. He goes, this is a great chapter right here.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Now, I always say the first and the last thing you do is what people remember. The first and the last. You go first on your page. Look at the first word right now, Joe. Look at the first word on the page. Bam, and then close the book tight. You did it? Look at the last word on your page.
Yep, I'm
did
looking
it?
at
Close
you.
the book. Here's where it gets wild. Each of you see your word in front of you. You could have gone any word any page, period, in your book, in my book. I want you to just grab out a letter. Just grab a letter out of your word right in the middle. Just grab the letter out. You got one? Letter and a letter?
Don't middle the word?
Middle.
Okay.
Because you did first and last, so now middle.
Okay.
Look at me. Look at each other. This is where people's brains get aligned. I don't think you did a vowel, did you? I don't think you did a vowel either, did you?
No.
See, isn't that weird? Not that weird. On 3, 1, 2, and when I say 3 and point at you, I want you to just say the letter, not the whole word. But when I go 1, 2, and 3, say the letter you picked. 1, 2, 3.
G. No.
That was weird. Right? How does this happen 1929 when everyone starts thinking like gentlemen? Each of you grab a...
Okay, so one thing I want to point out about that is he's focused on the first and the last. Remember, in witchcraft, how we said the ones and the nines are very important to these people? That would be the first and the last, the beginning and the end, first and last. And, there was also a verse in the Bible where Jesus talked about the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Now, I went back and read that whole chapter, and there was also another citation of that very same phrase somewhere else in the Bible. But I read them both, and neither one of them seemed to make a lot of sense to me. In other words, I don't really know, but I got a feeling these are all interrelated. But Oz Perlman is clearly focused on the first and the last here. So let's keep going.
And when everyone starts thinking like gentlemen, each of you grab a pad of paper and a marker. There is no collusion. You could have picked any random page. Any word, grab it. There's no chance on this. Hold it close to your body, gentlemen. I'm going to close my eyes close to your body. Turn it sideways. Landscape. And I do not want to see what words you're writing.
Okay.
And I want you each to write your word as big as you can, please. And hold it close to your body so you cannot see each other's. And definitely I can't either.
I'm writing the word?
Your word, yeah.
The one with the G in the middle.
Whatever you picked out of the whole book, yeah. Hold it close to each other.
Okay.
Close to my body.
Yep.
Ready?
Yep.
Can we get 3 shots so we can get all of us in the same time? On 3. 1, 2, and when I say 3 and point at you, I want you to turn your words around. 1, 2, and think about this. You picked any page, you picked any word. Both of you did this. 3, turn around. Legal. Is that correct? Legal.
I can't do it anymore.
I know. I'm going back in time trying to think of how.
Every time. Joe, don't go back in time. Go forward in time. Because 1929, your book turned the world upside down financially. Is that right?
Yeah.
You each gave me any day, any month, any year, just on the spot. I'm about to turn your world upside down because when you turn this upside down, the word that I'm seeing...
I don't know what to say anymore.
I didn't want him to come in today.
I almost expect it now.
I know.
So
I do too.
But it's
anything short of thinking he might be Satan is. I mean, you're like.
I can't even. There's no way.
There's a logical explanation. Is there not? Either that.
Okay, so there we go again with the inversion. Okay, you know how I say that the witches or the Satanists or whoever, whatever title you want to give them, they like to invert things. They like the upside down cross. They like to put things in their videos and books, and they like to twist them around and make them opposite and backwards. Another good example of that would be the backward masking that we heard about back in the 80s, where, as a kid growing up in the 80s, I was hearing that some of these hair bands like Motley Crue or whatever, they would, if you played the songs backwards, you would hear satanic lyrics. That was probably true, but I don't know that for sure. But regardless, he inverts his poster where he had written down 7/06/27, and it reads legal. So what do I read into that? I think that when they pop the AI bubble, my theory on this is that they're going to look around and go, well, how did this happen? And they're going to say, well, it was all legal. It was just vendor financing. It wasn't circular accounting where we were trying to, deceive everyone, by passing the money from NVIDIA back to CoreWeave and then back from CoreWeave back to another company and then they would buy the NVIDIA chips, that kind of crap. Because NVIDIA's customer is NVIDIA. Or NVIDIA's customer's customer is NVIDIA. So I think they're just going to say, well, it was all legal. It was vendor financing. Or it could be, there was a guy named David Webb that wrote a book a few years ago that I started hearing about on podcasts called The Great Taking, where all the groundwork has been laid, where they can come in and do bail-ins instead of bailouts with the banks. I don't think they're going to bail in the banks. I think they're going to bail out the banks. But that's a little bit later. But anyway, there's one last little clip I want to show you guys, and then we'll move on to the last big piece of evidence for this trade.
It's no way. That was promo. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Squawk Box comes back. Contemplate this. Maybe somebody can send us an email and break how he did this. It happens every time.
So at the very end of this skit, Andrew Ross Sorkin says somebody can send us an email and break how he does this. So he chose to use the word break. I find that very, very strange because, you know, you would think he would probably have gone with the word explain how he did this, but he says break. And what do we have? We have the casting of a spell, and how do you break a spell? So I just think that's a strange choice of words. But the last thing I want to go over with you guys on this is the other piece of evidence. I didn't find this one until about probably a couple weeks ago, I'm guessing, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. I was watching another podcast, and if I had to pinpoint when did the AI bubble burst, in other words, let's say that we see the markets continue down and start a real crash here in January or even in this first quarter. We look back on the whole entire thing. When did the AI bubble really pop? I would say, honestly, right now, the AI bubble, the thing that's going to pop it is Gemini. Apple has just come out in the last day or two and said that they're going to use Gemini instead of OpenAI for whatever it is the hell they're doing. Okay, now, one thing, I've asked the chatbots, and I've asked Gemini, and I've asked it, I said, hey, when Google came out with Gemini, is it true that they used 0 NVIDIA hardware and 0 NVIDIA software? And it said, yes, that is true. So without OpenAI in that mix to buy all those, to spend all that money and buy all those NVIDIA chips, NVIDIA is basically, I mean, they're the linchpin on this whole thing. If NVIDIA fails, and by fail I mean anything less than 50% year-over-year growth, that's failure for NVIDIA at this point. Because remember, they're trading at 26, 27 times sales, not earnings, sales. Go back and listen to my Scott McNeely episode. I think it was the one before this one, episode 12 or 11, where he had this famous speech. He comes in, and it's, what were you thinking? They put it in Business Week on April 1st, April Fool's Day, 2000, I believe it was 2003, I want to say. Might have been 2002. I don't remember exactly. But the what were you thinking speech, where he explained, look, if I could cut all of my expenses, all 39,000 employees, I have to pay them nothing. My sales remain constant. I have no cost of goods sold. I have no expenses whatsoever. If I could cut all my expenses to 0 tomorrow, you guys bid my stock up to 10 times sales. It would take you a decade. If I could convince my board of directors to pay all of my profits out as dividends, if we could get all that lined up, no expenses, revenue stays the same, all profits go out as dividends, it would take you a decade of your life to recover this investment. What were you thinking? And let's put that in perspective today. NVIDIA is trading at 26, 27 times sales today. So anything under 50%, I would imagine, revenue growth year over year, NVIDIA is going to tank the entire market. And when NVIDIA goes, I promise you the whole market's going to go. They're just too big to fail at this point. But yeah, I think if they're, now that's the number one catalyst, I would say, is this Gemini decision that Apple's made instead of going with OpenAI and Sam Altman. But if we look back and this market does start to correct and go down in January, which I think it will, or the first quarter of this year, we look back, the defining moment, it could very well be that interview on the Zoom meeting call where Sam Altman is being questioned by Brad Gerstner. He's one of the investors in the company. I'm going to play you the clip here in just a second. And Brad just basically asked Sam, hey, how are you going to spend? Because apparently OpenAI has made $1.4 trillion in spending commitments to keep this AI bubble alive. 1.4 trillion. And their annual revenue this year in 2025, I think it's going to be 13 billion. Of course, they like to go with their year-end number, which they're going to claim is closer to 20 billion. So in other words, if you take what they've sold in December and multiply that times 12, you'd come up with 20 billion. That's their annual run rate of revenue. Regardless, you just 1.4 trillion on 20 billion in revenues. Yeah, it's a joke. So if there was a defining moment when the bubble popped and then Sam Altman answered him with enough, I'll play you the clip right now.
Company with 13 billion in revenues make 1.4 trillion of spend commitments, and you've heard the criticism,
First
Sam.
of all, we're doing well more revenue than that. Second of all, Brad, if you want to sell your shares, I'll find you a buyer. I just enough. People are. I think there's a lot of people who would love to buy OpenAI shares. I don't think you,
including myself, including myself,
people who talk with a lot of breathless concern about our compute stuff or whatever, that would be thrilled to buy shares. So I think we could sell, your shares or anybody else's to some of the people who are making the most noise on Twitter, whatever, about this very quickly.
Okay, so if there's a defining moment of when the bubble popped, I believe that was it. Okay, but one thing I want to point out is if you go back and you rewind and watch that clip again, look at what is just over the left shoulder of Brad Gerstner. Lo and behold, there's that damn book again. The 1929 Stock Market Crash by Andrew Ross Sorkin. There it is again, right there, right over his left shoulder. Now, what's also interesting about this is, I'm going to go over some dates now. When I woke up early in the morning, after I got back to my house in Texas from Puerto Rico, and I was on that 2-hour time change, the morning that I woke up and decided to, just by happenstance, I just decided to turn on CNBC on Fubo on my iPad. Guess what the date of that was? It was November the 19th. There's an 11 and a 1-9. It's 9/11 encoded backwards, isn't it? Okay. And then, what is the date of this interview with Sam Altman and Brad Gerstner and Satya Nadella or whatever the CEO of Microsoft? Those three were on that podcast. I think it's called the BG2 podcast. The date of that podcast was Halloween, October 31st. Now go ask your chatbots. Hey, chatbot, Gemini, is October 31st important in witchcraft? And see what it says. It's just the most revered day of the year in all of witchcraft. So is this all coincidence? Am I seeing stuff that's not here? I don't think so. I'm betting on it. I'm betting that these markets are going to go down, and they're going to go down a lot, and I'm going to bet on them. I'm not as certain about this one as the others, but I am certain that these markets are going to go down substantially, a lot more than just bear market territory. So you have your correction, which is 10%. Bear market territory identified as 20% down from that all-time high. I think these are going to crash. I think they're going down 80, 90%. And I do believe that they're going to bottom these markets on July 6, 2027. One thing about that video that I just showed you guys about Oz Perlman on the set of CNBC, if you type in Oz Perlman CNBC, you'll find a lot of videos on there. Most of them are put on the CNBC YouTube channel, but that one was not. There's a guy, if you listen real carefully on that video clip that I recorded, that guy is recording that, and you can hear his wife yelling at him in the background, whoever recorded that and uploaded that to their own private YouTube channel. So for whatever reason, all of other Oz Perlman's other appearances on CNBC are recorded and put on their YouTube channel, but not that one, not the one with that specific date, July 6, 2027. That's why I think that's when they're going to bottom these markets. So that's the investment thesis. This is the best presentation I've got for it. I've been wanting to put this together for weeks now, but I've got some things I've been doing around my house and home improvement and painting, and it's just a real pain in the ass. But regardless, that's where we're at. Now I'm going to go into baseball. So if you're not interested in the baseball aspects of it, I think anybody, now I can't guarantee anything, and there is risk involved, but if you were, I post all of my baseball plays every morning during baseball season for free on my Twitter channel. That's at Bogus Banks, all lowercase, at Bogus Banks on Twitter. If you'll go in there, I post all my plays every morning for free, and I think I've identified an app through that one of those chatbots. I think I've identified an app that's going to alert me going forward when there's a pitching change. So in other words, I'm going through in the morning. There's 15 games. 3 teams haven't listed a starting pitcher. I see that shit all the time. So I fill out my whole spreadsheet. I get what bets I can out of those remaining 12 pitchers. Or I guess it would be on 15 games you'd have 27 pitchers. I'm always missing one or three or something in the mornings. They wind up listing somebody later that day, or another thing they'll do is they'll list a pitcher in the morning, and then by the time the game starts, they're starting a different pitcher. They change it during the day. But apparently there's an app that will alert me to let me know, hey, there was a pitching change. And if I can't find an app that does it, I think I might spend the money to just do it myself and have an app on my phone, because those bets last year won every single time we missed them, every time. So I also wanted to point out that I'm adding another formula. So I think I disclosed on my last podcast that I added 2 formulas last year. I think I added one in May. I added another one in August. And I've gone back through and back tested those with a formula, and it looks like they do really well. And then at the beginning of last season, there were 4 or 5 formulas that I just couldn't explain why they were working. So I set them aside and continued to monitor them. One of the formulas did really well, and it's only had one losing season in 18 years. And last year, I didn't think I could explain it. But after seeing it win again in 2025, I think I figured out why I wasn't able to explain it a year ago and why I think I can now. So I'm going to be including that formula in the plays in 2026. And that formula was basically to bet on a veteran pitcher that's not been doing well. He's in a slump. And what I couldn't figure out was this. If he's on a mediocre team and all these criteria are present, then you'd want to bet on him to have a bounce back game. But what doesn't work, but I only bet him when he's either PK or an underdog. Okay. But what doesn't work, I can't apply that to if he's on a winning team. So if he's on a team with a solid winning record, they don't bounce back. And the reason is that I think I figured out just yesterday. I think the reason that these pitchers are not able to bounce back when they're on good teams is because in order for a good team to be an underdog or even PK, that probably tells you that the guy on the mound on the other side is really good. You don't want to bet on a bounce back for a mediocre pitcher or a pitcher on a slump, a veteran pitcher that's on a slump to bounce back when he's facing, Shohei Ohtani on the other side of the mound. You wait for, so that's why I'm including that one now. So I've got 12 formulas that I'll be dragging down on my spreadsheet every morning while I'm having my coffee, and I'll post those plays for you. I looked at what was the average number of units of profit per season. Now remember, 2020 was a shortened season because of COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead of getting our regular 162 games that year, we only got 60. So that was only 0.37, 37% of a baseball season. So on my spreadsheet, it goes back to the beginning of the 08 season, and I've got every game played, regular season, all the way through the end of 2025. And on average, these formulas have a profit at the end of the year of 77 units of profit. So if you think that you could play a $1,000 unit with your bookie, in theory, you would make $77,000 a year betting these baseball plays. Now, I can't guarantee that these plays are going to continue to work in the future. I'm just betting on plays that have worked in the past. And it's entirely possible for me to make mistakes. Even though I've got the spreadsheet right in front of me and I can filter everything down, I can still make mistakes. But last year we did have a profitable year. We won, I think it was 33 units of profit. And then on those plays the pitching changes that came in late in the day, I think if we would have recorded all those, we would have won like 45 units. But then when I added back in those other formulas that I didn't bet on last year, and the plays that I missed prior to May when I added the first formula in, and then the plays prior to August when I added that second formula in, I think it wound up with like 80 units of profit last year. It was a really good season. So we'll see how things go. Baseball starts in 69 days. Yankees at Giants on March 21st. So that's it for this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed listening, and we'll be back with podcast number 4. Thank you.